One of the hardest parts of renovating an investment property is deciding what needs to be done, and then finding contractor partners that you can work with, like HVAC, plumbing, and electrical at a minimum. In most cases, these are licensed professionals that can pull permits and know local codes and regulations in their respective fields. Elaine has mentioned before that most of the contractors we choose to work with give us better pricing because she sends them somewhat regular work from her real estate clients that are selling and need to do improvements to this or that before they list their homes for sale. When we buy a property, we do our best to assess what repairs would add the most value and roughly estimate the cost of those repairs. Sometimes we choose to do items on our list ourselves, but we are finding that contractors can help us get things done much quicker. Now, we didn't have any extra money on our first deal, so we did everything that we could do ourselves. The best part about buying that property in cash is the only holding cost we had was the electrical bill, and taxes and insurance if we held it for more than a year. Our second deal, due to the scope, we had to use an electrician, a plumber, an HVAC guy. We also chose to use contractors for windows, exterior paint, and sheetrock. We found a lot of contractors that say they can do anything, but in our experience, most of them are really good at one thing. The paint guy probably shouldn't be installing tile, and the plumber shouldn't be installing trim work unless you want it to drop 1 inch every 10 feet. After buying our first property, renovating it, and reselling it for a very small profit, so small the tax guy said we didn't know any taxes, we were suddenly confident about our ability to tackle anything. So we naturally picked a big house from 1920 that had fire damage. Before we get into that, the reason we found this property is because we were helping our son find his first house. And of course, we tried to encourage him to purchase a property that he could have some equity in if we put a little bit of work into it before he moved into it. So this also gave us an opportunity to be in several distressed properties. So our second flip, Main Street, having some difficulty remembering any properties that we looked at before, but we know we were in lots showing Zach around. And we came across Lincoln and Main Street. And what do you remember about that?
Well, I remember seeing that there were quite a few houses on Main Street that needed done, and we looked at this one. It was actually 3 doors down from the one we ended up with, and it had originally been a duplex, a big old house that someone had split up to a duplex, and needed a roof. It was very settling, uneven floors on the corner of 2 pretty busy roads, no yard. And it also shared the garage with the neighbor. Literally opened the door and half of the garage is the neighbor's, no divider.
I think I remember going up the back set of stairs, and it was really felt unsafe, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that house actually 4 years later was still in. Someone had bought it when we bought ours, and they tried to fix it up, and then it had a fire.
Coincidence?
Yeah, coincidence. The area is kind of rough over there. A lot of homeless people kind of squatting, and
very close to downtown, very close to Kellogg.
Yeah.
I mean, less than a mile,
close to the river.
Yeah.
But I didn't like the foundational issues, and I felt like it was really choppy, the way that it was broken up into the duplex. I didn't like how you had to get into that other apartment from the back.
Well, it seems like it'd been broken up and put back together 5 times. Like they made it a duplex, and then they took it back, and then they tried to make it a fourplex, and then they took it back, and it just seemed like a really strange. Luckily, we'd noticed the house down the street was also for sale,
It was a monster.
It was a big house.
Every time I drove on that corner, every time I drive on that corner, I just see this monster house, giant house.
Man, they put a fence around it.
Yeah. We walked in and, well, we didn't walk in. We had to kind of break in because they had like
put a padlock
or something on it and to keep the homeless people out. And pretty much every window upstairs was broken out and the rest were boarded up mostly.
The back door, I hope we have a picture of this, but the back door had a 2x4 going from the door to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Whatever that bathroom.
Yeah.
They put a bathroom in the kitchen.
Yeah. And then, we walked in that house and we thought, man, this one's on fire, but it looks better than the one down the street. It was way better. It was solid. It seemed solid. There was some minor sloping issues in the back, what would have become the back bathroom. Very minor, just mostly because of the rotten floor. There was some old termite damage, and there was nothing. No kitchen, no bathroom.
Most have been gutted.
Yeah. Someone had bought it, an out-of-town investor. I think he had some people working on it, and they had put a ceiling on in one of the dining rooms, but I don't know if that was before or after the fire, because there was some mold had gotten in between the ceiling and the joists, and we ripped all that out.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but initially we found the property, we walked in, we saw it was square and pretty level for a 1920 house. Yeah. So we submitted an offer for...
And this house was also right by my childhood church that I went to. When we moved to Wichita, we went to the church right behind there, and so I kind of spent some time in the neighborhood and was really sad to have seen it, kind of going a bad way. And so I thought it would be a great idea if we could give something back to that area. And so we decided to write an offer.
Yeah, so we wrote an offer. I think they were asking $35 for it at the time.
Yeah.
I think we wrote an offer for $30, and I think they countered at... Well, no,
32.
They must... I think they must have approved it because we did the survey, and then they gave us... The actual closing price was $28, right?
Yeah. $28,000 is what we paid for that big old monster house. But it had sat empty for years. A couple years at least.
I think it was worth every penny.
So we did the survey. We wanted to do the survey because in the lot description we owned a lot and a half, and we weren't exactly sure. There's a parking lot on one side and the neighbor's house on the other side, and we wanted to maybe put a fence up, and we weren't sure where our property line went. Did we own part of the parking lot or not? So we did the survey initially to find out that, and come to find out we owned 6 feet into the neighbor's property.
It was, I don't know if it was quite 6, but it was a lot. It was definitely 3. It may have been 5. I don't know. It could have been. I don't think it was 6.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, and we owned some of the neighbor's house.
Yeah.
And they had a carport that they had made that literally went from their house to the fence.
That was on the property line.
Yeah, the carport was actually into our property line. And they must have seen them out there marking. So we were kind of wrestling with, what do we do with this? What do we say or whatever? And
how do we approach the neighbor about getting our land back?
And it actually, the owner wasn't who lived there. I don't know if it was a family member or what, but they got to work. We never even had to talk to them. They got to work. They moved the fence back. They moved the carport back, and they ended up 3 feet back into their property. So it was kind of lucky because we didn't really know how to approach that on the property.
Well, that's why the owner of the property that we purchased, was willing to give us the survey back, because they knew that we were going to have a battle on our hands to get property back that was rightfully ours, but the neighbor was on, so
Yeah.
they at least gave us a survey cost back, which was nice.
Yeah, that was nice. And we showed up the first day at the house. I showed up with Scott's cousins, family members, and we had to inform the homeless people that they didn't live there anymore. And I think that was a little bit for them. A little bit much for the cousins. Like, don't talk to them.
They're just people.
I know. But we actually did.
That's not the only time we had to kick somebody. I had to kick somebody off too. It was nice about it. Hey,
nice,
man, I'm sorry.
like,
I own this property now.
Yeah.
You can't be here
and
anymore.
they moved along pretty well. And,
yeah, they didn't fight you.
But I just thought it was funny that they were, don't talk to him. You're gonna die. I'm like, this is my house now. So yeah, we closed Main Street and got to work. I think we had, was it 4 or 5 dumpsters?
Oh yeah, we had 5 dumpsters. But before we really got into all that, we had to decide what we wanted to do with it. And so this thing was a massive, whopping 1-bedroom, I think 1-bedroom house, right?
Yeah.
As it sat.
Yeah.
There was an interesting stairway that went up to a room that was upstairs, but really couldn't call it a bedroom. It was kind of strange.
We called it the sunroom.
Well, we did. Yeah, we called it the sunroom. There was a dining room there, and so we had to decide, what path we wanted to go. And we called out an engineer, and he was kind of a booger to get a hold of. He was
retired now.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, retired. We need more. We have a shortage. So
if anybody wants
to be a structural engineer in Kansas, they're paying good money.
And we could use some residential structural engineers.
Yeah, I think we're down to 2.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, so he came in and told us what all we would have to do. Some of our existing relationships came in to benefit for us. They were able to get us our permits. We actually did a remodel permit, and we permitted everything that we did as a full-on remodel of this property. And so county was involved for inspections on HVAC, electric, plumbing, and sheetrock. So
yeah,
we got all the proper permits on this one. We didn't mess around. We did everything the way we're supposed to. And after we got the engineer to give us his design, what we would need to do, we decided that we wanted to add like a master suite with a bedroom, bathroom, and walk-in closet upstairs. So it was going to take quite a bit of structural repair. We walked through with one of our contractors, and we just need to put a 1/4-inch sheetrock up there, and when we pulled down all the lath and plaster, some of the 2x4s were literally just breaking in half from stretching a 14-foot span for 100 years. And so we're happy that we got the engineer involved, right? We decided to add a bedroom downstairs.
Yep. We made it 2 bedrooms down. It had a weird bathroom in the kitchen. We decided that we would get rid of that thing and make the kitchen bigger, and a little eating space in the kitchen. And we wrestled with closing some things off and opening some things up. We saved the hardwood floors on the main level. We did struggle a bit, I remember, with bracing that upstairs. We had, I don't know. I
Around
can't
the stairs?
remember. Yeah.
So
We ripped the stairs down and put new stairs. And
because of that bedroom that we added, I struggled with, is the city going to make us make the stairs 36 inches wide, or are they going to allow us to retain the original size of the stairs? And so in order to give myself room, just in case they made me widen the stairs, I made the bedroom just a little bit smaller so we could have enough room to have 36-inch hallway and a 36-inch stair.
If we needed to.
Yeah. And then we had a giant, so that was 6 feet across, 72 inches, that we had to span a header to support the upstairs in front of the stairs, I think, where I think you're talking about.
Let's go back to the renovation part. When we first started demoing, we decided to remove all of the lath and plaster and anything that anyone had previously done to the house. And oh God, it was so dusty in there.
Yeah, so in 95, masks were kind of a thing around the time we were flipping this, so we didn't have too much trouble finding them at first.
Yeah, but then they were pretty scarce at times, trying to find the filters. And
once we really got in, because we bought this right before COVID.
Yeah.
And then once COVID really got going, we were having trouble finding replacement filters and stuff like that. But I've never felt like I needed a mask. I feel like that's kind of sissy or whatever. But when we started ripping out all this lath and plaster, like it was too bad. You needed to wear a mask, really.
We found some really cool treasures as we were ripping things out. We found a 1976 Aerosmith record. Mm-hmm. And a jar of picante sauce, several cans of beer. We found
ice pick.
2 ice picks.
Mm-hmm.
And we found some drugs. A needle with drugs.
One drug needle for sure.
One drug needle. It was stuck in some spray foam. We did find some old, back in 1930 or 40, they used to put ribbon for sewing, like lace and ribbon, on cards that were like nursery rhyme cards, and we found a couple of those in the attic. We found a lot of like sewing stuff in the attic, and as people dropped by to see the repairs and talk to us when we were out, we found out that there was a couple at one point, like the 60s or 70s, that lived there, and she let a lot of people come and stay that were maybe needing some housing. And there were several people that came by that said they actually had lived in our house at one point. I don't know if they were homeless or they were with her or they knew her. I don't know. But yeah, we had a lot of things demoing. We actually hired quite a few people that were just walking by to load a couple dumpsters for us. Mostly we offered for them to come back. We paid them and offered them to come back the next weekend, and nobody ever took us up on it.
Yeah, never showed up again.
Too much work. I don't know.
They walked by, and there's a lot of, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of homeless in the area, and a lot of people they just want to make a little extra money, and so we filled up 5 dumpsters.
Yeah.
5 big, and I think a trailer, a 6th, like, smaller dumpster.
Yeah.
Just to clean the place up. But the first thing we did was rip this all the way down to the studs, right? And then after everything got ripped out, then we immediately went after the windows so we could start to kind of try to get it dried in so we didn't have moisture from...
It rained in there, snowed in there. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure
the one good thing about the house is that the previous owner, it had been in a fire, but the previous owner had put the roof on, new roof.
Yeah, new roof.
We did add some venting later because the attic got, when we were finished and doing some repairs up there, put a little thermometer up there. It was 140 degrees. Those
Man.
guys were like, it's too hot to work up here.
There wasn't much of an attic up there by the time we got done.
Yeah.
Because we really turned the attic into the whole primary suite situation. But I think I had about 18 inches. It was enough for me to crawl up in there and shove more insulation up there because it desperately needed it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, and we, so the roof was really the good thing about the house.
Mm-hmm. The siding was still in pretty good shape.
Mostly, yeah. Where we took out some windows, I think we removed
At least 2, I think 3.
No, we did 4 up in the sunroom. I think there was like 7 altogether that we removed. Yeah.
No, I was thinking of just like the 3 on the back side of the house, but you're right.
Yeah.
We took those. There's 2 big windows on either side on the north and south side of the sunroom, and turned those into a small, skinny window just to have some daylight coming in because we appreciate the extra natural light. It was kind of a neat room to just stand in and look back at the church that you went to and to see that old school building back there.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, so this was a very large project, especially for our second one, and we still have a ton to talk about, but I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap it up for this episode and come back and finish up talking about the rest of the stuff on the next one.